Keith Jelly with his speech entitled Ibagum, Keith Jelly.
Ibagum! What on earth does that mean? My speech tonight is about Zimbabwe and Robert Mugabe's journey backwards from success to failure. Mugabe, spelled backwards, is Ibagum. I never believed that a country's inflation rate could exceed its population. They don't teach that in economics. But yes, Zimbabwe's inflation rate is 231 million%. And their population is only 13 million. Not only does it exceed, it completely blows away the population. So what does that really mean for the layman? It means prices double every 11 days. It means you buy your groceries on the way to work, because if you buy them on the way home, they'll be 10% more. But it wasn't always like this. In 1980, when Bob was elected, the economy was strong. There were plenty of minerals. There were plenty of food. There was petrol and there was tobacco. One Zim dollar was equivalent to $1.47 US. Inflation was 7%. 10 years later, in 1990, the economy, after 10 years of rule of Robert Mugabe, the economy was still strong. It had lost a little bit of its shine, but it was still, things were still going well. The inflation rate was 17%. One Zim dollar was equal to 25 cents American. But Africa still had this jewel in Zimbabwe. It was one of the jewels of Africa. Even in 1997, 17 years into Bob's rule, inflation was only 20%. But that would soon change, because in 2000, Robert Mugabe controversially decided that all the white farmers should be kicked off their land, and that land should be given to the black farmers. What he actually meant by that was he was going to give the land to his friends, and to cabinet ministers, and to the war veterans, and actually to a handful of black farmers. This was a massive mistake. The previous farmers had helped Zimbabwe produce enough food for the whole country, plus another 50% that was used to feed Africa, other nations in Africa. But the skills of the new farmers, their incentive to work, their scale of operation was just not there, and the yield dropped to less than 25% of the previous values. Couple this with the major economic drain that was encountered by Zimbabwe supporting the civil war in the Congo. Nothing to do with Zimbabwe, but Mugabe sent a lot of money there, and that ran from 1998 to 2002. And you couple these two things together and you have the recipe for a disaster. The eviction of the farmers from their land and the unrest that surrounded the uncertainty caused tourism to drop off. 1.4 million visitors went to Zimbabwe in 1999 and only 350,000 in the year 2000. And in December 2000, hotel occupancy was only 20%. Many tourism jobs were lost. And in fact, many airlines stopped flying to Zimbabwe. But that was not the only casualties. The Zimbabwe Conservation Task Force said that by June 2007, 60% of the wildlife in Zimbabwe, one of its premium attractions, had died. So after a few years, Zimbabwe now had to import massive amounts of food, and soon they didn't have any foreign exchange, they couldn't buy food, and they began this deadly hyperinflation spiral. And now, the World Food Organization estimates that 80% of Zimbabweans are living on less than $1 a day. Imagine yourself in August 2008. You wake up in the morning and you think, I am rich. I have $10 billion in the bank. And boom, you realize that that is not enough to buy a loaf of bread. And you set off to the cafe to buy a litre of milk, and you have to take a suitcase full of notes with you to do so. 3 million people, 3 million Zimbabweans, walked across the border into the neighbouring countries as refugees. The jewel of Africa had turned into a broken, worthless piece of glass. The people that left, they left because there was nothing at home. The shelves were empty, the petrol stations were empty, the Reserve Bank was empty, and the future was empty. They had nothing left. So as they walked away, all they said was, "E bar good."